A general counsel and a head of engineering are sitting across from each other in a strategy session, and they are both convinced the other one is going to sink the company. The engineer has a product that could open a whole new market, and she wants to ship it in 6 weeks. The lawyer has read the same plan, and what he sees is exposure, a regulatory question nobody has answered, a data flow that hasn't been reviewed, 3 ways this lands them in front of a regulator 2 years from now. She hears him and thinks, here we go again, the Department of No, where good ideas go to die. He hears her and thinks, this is how companies get sued. She has no idea what she's playing with. I have sat in that room more times than I can count, and here is what I want you to notice before we go further. Neither of them is the problem. Both are right about the thing they're protecting and wrong about the person across the table. The engineer is doing her job. The lawyer is doing his. They are two formations doing exactly the work each was built to do, colliding at full speed and reading the collision as a character flaw in the other. What I'm going to give you here is a way to read that exact pairing, legal and tech, so that when you're in the room, you can see the structure underneath the heat. Once you can see it, you stop trying to referee and you start doing the one move that frees this kind of team. Let me begin with an image that reorganizes the whole collision. Picture a car with no brakes. When I say that, almost everyone's mind goes the same place. They imagine it going faster, dangerously fast, out of control. A car with no brakes can only crawl. Think about why. Every corner becomes a gamble because once you commit to speed, you have no way to scrub it off when the road turns. So the driver creeps. The car that looks like it should be a rocket is actually the slowest thing on the road, paralyzed by its own lack of a way to stop. The brakes are what let the car take the corner at speed. That's the whole point of them. Their real function is to make speed survivable. A driver who trusts the brakes can carry momentum into a turn that would terrify a driver who has none. Hold that picture because it's the entire reframe for legal and tech. In most companies, tech looks at legal and sees the thing slowing them down, the drag on velocity. But a company with no legal function moves like that car with no brakes, tentative, exposed, unable to commit to anything bold because there's no system catching the downside. Legal, read correctly, is what lets technology take the corner at speed. When tech can trust that someone competent is watching the risk, tech can actually push harder. That's how the two were designed to work together. And almost no team sees it that way on its own. So this is what's really happening in that room, and I want to name it carefully because it's the heart of why this collision stays stuck. Tech experience is legal as the brakes, and I mean experiences in the most visceral sense. To the engineer, legal shows up as the drag, the no, the worried parent who can't see how exciting the thing she's building is. Every time she brings momentum, legal seems to reach for the handbrake, and legal experiences tech right back just as vividly as the reckless teenager, the one who grabbed the keys, doesn't understand what a car can do to a person and is already halfway down the on-ramp before anyone checked the brakes. To the lawyer, the engineer's confidence doesn't read as competence. It reads as someone who hasn't yet been burned, who genuinely does not know what she's playing with. Now here is the part that matters most, and it's the thing you have to hold on to when you're coaching them. Both of those experiences are completely honest. The engineer is not exaggerating her frustration to win a point. Legal genuinely does feel like a wall to her. The lawyer is not being dramatic. Tech genuinely does feel like exposure to him. Neither one is performing, and yet both of them are wrong about the other. The lawyer is running a function the company would die without. The engineer is the reason the company has a future to protect it all. The experiences are real. The conclusions each draws about the other person are false. Your job is to hold both of those truths at once because the team can't. Let me show you what each of these two is built for, because once you see the architecture, the collision stops looking like a personality clash. Legal scans for what could go wrong. That's the core orientation, baked in from years of being the person who has to imagine the worst version of every plan. Tech builds toward what could go right. Also baked in from years of reps, the engineer's whole craft is bringing something into existence that wasn't there before. Go a layer deeper. Of all 7 formations on a leadership team, legal carries the highest identity rigidity. I want you to sit with that because it explains so much. Legal isn't being stubborn for sport. The lawyer's professional identity is fused with a cognitive style that stress tests every proposition for vulnerability. That's the function itself, woven into who he is at work. Ask him to stop poking holes in the plan, and you've asked him to stop being a lawyer. Tech's identity is anchored somewhere completely different, to creation. The engineer's sense of who she is comes from making things, and critically, she treats failure as iteration cost. A bug, a flop, a version that didn't work. To her, that's tuition, it's data, it's the next iteration. To legal, that same failure reads as liability, the thing you spend years trying to prevent. So when she shrugs off a risk as, "We'll fix it in the next release," she's speaking the native language of a formation that learns by failing forward. He's speaking for a formation whose whole job is making sure the costly failure never happens at all. This reframe reorganizes everything. And when it lands for a team, you can watch the temperature in the room drop. What looks like a conflict is actually a polarity. Say that to a team, and at first they don't believe you because it has felt like a fight for so long. But a fight implies someone should win. A polarity is a different animal entirely. A polarity is a tension you manage, not a problem you solve. Think about breathing in and breathing out. You don't solve that by deciding inhaling is correct and exhaling is the problem. You need both forever in rhythm. Prevention and innovation are exactly that kind of pair. The company that only innovates drives off a cliff. The company that only prevents rusts in the garage. Neither pole is the answer. Both are permanent, and the work is holding them in productive tension. This is the move that frees the team. The mistake, the thing that keeps this collision grinding for years, is the team trying to pick one pole, trying to decide whether they're a company that moves fast or a company that plays it safe. That question has no good answer because the team needs both poles to function. When you help a leadership team see that their real work is to manage the standing tension between prevention and innovation, to hold legal and tech as two ends of one system the company runs on, the frame shifts. The lawyer stops being an obstacle. The engineer stops being a risk to contain. They become the two ends of a polarity the company can't live without. And the question changes from who wins to how do we hold both well. Now, I want to add the engine that quietly compounds this collision more than any other. And of all the pairings on a leadership team, this one carries the widest version of it. It's the gap in time horizons, and it is enormous here. Legal evaluates over years to decades. The lawyer reading that product plan is thinking well past this quarter toward a regulatory action that could surface 3 years out, a precedent that could bind the company for a decade, a liability whose tail is longer than anyone in the room will hold their current job. Tech evaluates over weeks to quarters. The engineer is living inside a release cycle. Her clock is measured in sprints. The market window she's chasing might be open for a few months before a competitor fills it. So when she says, "We need to move now," she means now in a unit of time the lawyer can barely register. And when he says, "Think about this carefully," he means careful across a span she can barely imagine. And this is the line I want you to carry into the room. Think about this carefully, and "we need to move now" are the same decision. Read on clocks that differ by orders of magnitude. They're both being responsible to wildly different timescales. He's protecting the company that exists in 10 years. She's protecting the company that has to win this quarter to be alive in 10 years. Neither clock is wrong, but until somebody makes the two clocks visible, each one keeps hearing the other as reckless or obstructionist, when really they're standing in different decades of the same company. Let me pull the threads together because by now you've watched 4 separate dimensions come alive in this one collision, and I want you to be able to name them when you're in the room. The first is risk and uncertainty, legal oriented toward what could go wrong, tech toward what could go right. That's the surface of the fight, the part everyone can already feel. The second is identity architecture. Legal carries the highest identity rigidity of the 7 formations, fused to a cognitive style that hunts for vulnerability. Tech's identity is anchored to creation and metabolizes failure as iteration cost. When these two clash, 2 senses of self are colliding, each defending the thing that makes it competent. The third is information processing. The lawyer takes in a proposal and his mind runs it through every failure mode. The engineer takes in the same proposal and her mind runs it through every possibility. Same words, 2 completely different machines processing them. And the fourth, the one we just sat with, is natural time horizon, decades against weeks, the widest gap of any pairing on the team. Naming all 4 matters for your practice for a reason. When a team is in the middle of this collision, it feels like one big undifferentiated mess of frustration. The skill you're building is the ability to decompose that mess into its parts. Once you can say to yourself, this piece is risk orientation, this is identity, this is processing style, this is the clock, the collision stops being a wall and becomes something you can read line by line. And a collision you can read is one you can help the team hold. So what do you actually do in the room? Let me give you the 2 moves and notice how carefully each one is built to surface the structure without you casting a vote. The first is a challenge, and I'd aim it at the whole team or at the tech leader specifically. You ask, what if legal's caution is the very thing that lets tech take bigger risks because someone trustworthy is watching the downside? Feel what that question does. It keeps the focus off the engineer's speed and reframes the lawyer from brake to enabler. The brakes that let the car take the corner at speed. It invites the team to see that the cautious one might be the reason the bold one can be bolder. The second move is the surfacing question, and this one does the deepest work. You ask, whose definition of responsible is this team defaulting to? One of you is evaluating risk over decades, the other over weeks. Neither is wrong. What happens when the team holds both clocks? Watch what that does. It takes the word responsible, which each side has been silently claiming as theirs, and makes it a shared question instead of a weapon. It puts both time horizons on the table and refuses to rank them. And this is the discipline you cannot let go of. You surface the polarity. The team sets its own risk appetite. You are not in that room to tell them how much risk to carry, where to land between prevention and innovation, or whose clock should win. That stays their decision. Your work is to make the polarity visible and manageable. Where they choose to sit on it belongs to them every time. This is your work before you move on, and I want you to actually write this one down, because there's a difference between recognizing a polarity when I describe it and constructing one yourself from the raw material of a real team. Bring to mind a prevention versus build tension you've watched live. Doesn't have to be legal and tech literally. Any pairing where one side guards against what could go wrong and the other pushes toward what could go right will work. Security versus product. Compliance versus sales. A board member who wants to slow down against a founder who wants to sprint. Find one you've actually seen where the two sides were grinding and probably reading each other as the problem. Now do the thing that's harder than it sounds. Write it as a polarity the team needs both ends of, not as a problem with a right answer. Instead of legal keeps blocking the product team, which frames one side as wrong, you write something like, this team is managing the standing tension between protecting the company from downside and capturing the upside before the window closes, and it needs both. Same situation, different frame. One has a villain, the other has two necessary poles. Then answer one more question, and this is where the real understanding lives. What did each pole protect? Go past what each side argued and name what each was guarding underneath. What was the prevention side protecting that the company genuinely needs? What was the build side protecting that it genuinely needs? When you can name what both poles protect, you've stopped taking sides and started doing the work this whole module is built on. Hold on to what you write. We build on it next.